Robert, for joining us on the BFT Chat. I mean, this particular interview has come at a time that you have accepted to go back home and become a cabinet minister. I mean, let me ask you, how has it been for you for the 4 years that you have been in this country working with HFC Bank?
Well, you know, it has been a combination of good times, bad times, turbulence, up, down. But again, you know, when I first came, there was a video that was shown of the last place that I was in Barbados. He came, he saw, and he conquered. And therefore, when I look back at all that we have achieved over the past 4 years, I think those words are still very applicable, that all the goals that I have set for myself in establishing Republic Bank here, and even more, I was able to achieve.
Are you saying that you have the responsibility to ensure that you took majority shares as far as HFC Bank was concerned, and then help in rebuilding a bank, an indigenous one at the time? Are you saying that you think you have conquered because you've just begun, let me say, showing us impressive performance in terms of your financials?
Well, I would say so. I would say that again, in the spirit of all that has been achieved. And let's be clear. I mean, you know, we have heard a lot of conversations. I mean, this conversation of Marcus, since Marcus Garvey, since the Black Star, people have been talking about diaspora investments back into Africa. And I know it's a lot of conversation about it. The reality is, it has not been very easy, and it has not happened in any significant way. And there's a reason for that also, which we could talk about from an investor perspective. But when you look and see, now Republic Bank's investment in Ghana is actually one of the largest single investment by a diaspora company back into Africa. I mean, that's significant. A lot of people, you might think coming to Africa or coming to Ghana is easy to do business, but a lot of people have tried and a lot of people have failed. When I was coming, there were lots of people who have said, listen to me, you will never be able to make that investment. And I must say, for the first 2 years I was here, and the level of negative confrontations and mistrust that was around it almost proved them correct. But the fact that we are able to now sit and talk about HFC being now majority controlled by a diaspora company is a significant achievement. And that is one that I could look back in and say I played a part and it was important. Again, the fact that I was able to come and enter HFC, and I look around at this time and I see organizations where 2 banks have just failed. And you know, people don't understand the implications of how sensitive a bank is and the cost of a bank failure to the community. So now you have 2 banks that have failed. Today, when we came into HFC, and I think people didn't understand the levels that of management that was required, we could now sit, and I think we have stabilized HFC, and I think we are now on a path where I am very confident that HFC is now going to be able, going forward, to be able to make sustainable profits, and is in a position whereby we could be considered as even a suitable candidate to acquire other institutions. So, yes, I might not be here, or I will not be here for the end of the year when we produce the most impressive results, or next year when we break all records. But that is not important to me. You know, Moses didn't actually reach the promised land. He was actually able to put the direction where it's going. And I am confident and I'm very comfortable with the position. And therefore that's why I feel comfortable in now leaving HFC and going on. because this opportunity could have presented itself in other times. But those times I didn't feel comfortable. Now I am comfortable with HFC where they are and the platforms that we have set, and now I can move on. Let me also say that, you know, one of the greatest achievements, of course, which wasn't done, that you didn't mention, but the fact that I also came here, and in 4 years' time, I came as a single man, and I'm now living with a very beautiful Ghanaian bride, is again my greatest achievement.
Your biggest achievement, I see. But I mean, you talk about the investment coming to Africa, and the fact that some people had even suggested to you that, look, the terrain wasn't that good, it was going to be difficult. From where you sit and what you have gone through and been able to achieve, would you say that investing in Ghana in particular, or doing business in Ghana, is quite turbulent? Let me not use the word difficult.
I think yes. Yeah, the short answer is yes, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, all of it not necessarily. It is driven by some institutional issues, and also by some cultural issues. So I think there are two pillars, and there are two that you have to put it under. I think what makes Ghana a little bit more difficult is really trying to understand there are some cultural issues that in some cases have manifested itself into some bad habits. So there is culture on one side, and then there are bad habits that comes out of culture, which is something that we have to guard ourselves against. So therefore, it is not always easy. Sometimes when people put culture or cultural issues as an excuse for bad habits. And we have to differentiate what is culture and what are just simply non-friendly, negative use of culture to prevent things from happening. And therefore, as a result of that, sometimes you get very frustrated in being able to make decisions. You know, a lot of times when you hear yes from an agreement, or you come out of a meeting and you say yes, we agree. I've learned the word or coined the phrase that yes is a convenient word used to avoid a difficult question. Yes doesn't mean yes.
Wow.
Yes doesn't mean yes. If you leave a meeting and you hear yes, yes does not mean yes.
You must go back and be sure that the yes really mean yes.
Well,
how do you get that now?
And when you go back, you realize at the point that yes was given, yes actually was at the point in time when the negotiations was getting difficult, and a yes was used so that you could defer a difficult situation. And when you come back, right, that is where the conversation starts. Now, to an unknown person, when you hear the word yes, you assume that yes means yes. So you go through an emotional trauma as an investor, thinking that I have negotiated and reached the end. And you start to almost feel like you want to celebrate, only to find out tomorrow morning that that answer really was not a true yes. It was a maybe. And now we're back to negotiations.
So these are some of the things that makes it very difficult for investors like you to be able to say, let's do this.
I would say yes. That's just an example. Yes. That's an example of a simple but real example of issues that, I mean, and these are not, when I spoke in the capacity of the bank, I meet a number of people who have come to Ghana to do business. And that is something that they always say, you know, there are so many different constituents. And I suppose what happens when you are dealing with somebody in front of you, that person also represents so many different constituents that even when this person say yes, because there are so many different people that impact on that person, sometimes the person really means yes, but when they go back, they have to come back and change. So that makes making a decision a very prolonged approach. It's prolonged. And therefore, at the end of the day, sometimes I think a lot of investors, some people get fed up and then they decide that they will move on. So that's something that I think both that needs to be, you have to be aware of if you want to be able to do business. That being said, I've also had a number of met a number of good friends and made a number of good acquaintances with people. And there's a lot of people who I think have a lot of the best interests of Ghana at heart.
Genuine people.
Genuine people.
So then I will ask you this particular question. You're going back home, and I'm sure that you become someone that many other investors will look up to and say, okay, Robert went into Ghana. No matter how hard the place is, he was able to succeed. And he got the investment. Now Republic Bank controls HFC Bank in Ghana, and the bank is beginning to do well. What will be your message to your countrymen who would like to come and invest in this country and for some reasons? I'm thinking twice. They're like, look, they say there are challenges in investing in Ghana. The people are not that strict. Let me put that way.
Well, I would think, one, I will have to just assure them that you need to have some good partners to enter it. You really do need to have some good partners. And you also need to come and be here in Ghana. You cannot make an investment in Ghana from the outside. Republic Bank started to get the traction that it required when we came, and when I came here to Ghana, and I sat on the ground and I met the people. Just like yourself, there are reporters who I have had great relationships with. So there are reporters and there are reporters. And not all reporters are the same. There are some reporters who are objective, and then there are some reporters that then just takes a certain slant to a story, even though they have access to the right information. They choose to take a certain slant. So it's important and imperative that you get in contact with the right people. And therefore, if you have the right people as your advisors, things are possible. You have to also you have to get emotionally strong. Because at the end of the day, you have to understand that because of the culture, because of the understanding that the person who is in front of you, as I said before, it's not necessarily because the person is a dishonest person, because that person represents so many different constituents, right? That you have to understand that a yes does not always mean a yes, right? And that necessarily is not because the person is dishonest, but it's just that's part of how the business operates, right? So I will make sure that they understand that. That being said, there is work, I think, to be done on the legal system. We went through the legal system. As you know, we took our matters to the court and we were very comfortable with the process. It took a little longer, but I think you could trust. You need to then sometimes put faith, and we did say that. We put faith in the legal system. A lot of times people feel that there's a lot of rumors around it, and people not at all times want to put faith in it. But trust the legal system and make sure that you have good lawyers to ensure that you fight for your rights. Right? Do not give up. So those are I think the business climate is also a very friendly place. I think you have a lot of educated people in Ghana. So there are lots of positives about investing here. And again, we, Republic Bank, in spite of all that we have gone through, we have decided to make Ghana our hub for our sub-Saharan Africa expansion strategy.
I see.
So we are here, and we are going to bring to Ghana as I promised, and I'm a man that whatever it is I promise, I do, I deliver. We are going to make Ghana our hub, just like at the end of the day, just like you have EcoBank in Togo, and you have Stanchart or Stanbic in South Africa, you are going to have a sub-Saharan Africa bank stationed and growing out of Ghana. We are going to do that.
That is when you do the rebranding,
right? Which we're going to do. So what I saw, what the Minister of Finance is talking about making Ghana a financial hub. I mean, I saw that Ghana had the potential to be that 3 years ago. I had a choice as a direct investor to go and make South Africa my hub. I could have decided to make Nigeria my hub. I chose Ghana. And therefore, right, I saw the potential of Ghana, of where it could go.
So you saw this because you think that regulatory rise, we are okay, the business environment is very conducive, you are talking about the people ready to do what they have to do, and so you think that this is where we need to put our money because our money is protected, because your main aim is to protect your money and also ensure that you make profits.
And yes, and I am telling you, that's the reason why I chose. The reality though, the reality, remember when I spoke, and we spoke when I first came, why Republic Bank, and what is this? And I also said, when Republic Bank comes as a bank, it opens the door for more diaspora investment to come from that side of the world. And remember, when a diaspora person invests, we bring two things. We bring financial capital, but we bring emotional capital. And the reason why I stayed is because I was not only bringing financial capital, because to me, coming to Africa meant coming home. So people, why I took all that pressure is because I was emotionally tied. So it is important. The best investment that you could get is not, it is really from the diaspora, and from, when I say diaspora, I mean the Caribbean. I'm very clear that the diaspora that we talk about, I go back to the Caribbean. And it is very clear because when you get investments from there, you have people with emotional ties to West Africa. Nobody else from top to bottom. And that I thank the staff for being part of that process and part of the sacrifice that needed to happen. But it was part of what is required when you have to rescue an institution.
So once you walk away, you can assure the staff of HFC that even with this announcement of making this place the hub for your expansion within the sub-Saharan region, there's not going to be any layers.
Well, at the end of the day, what I could assure people, we have set a very clear process with regard to staff and with regard to performance and what is required to get promotions in HFC, what is required for you to be able to keep your job at HFC, and there are clear performance targets that people need to happen. For this bank to be rescued, for this bank to grow, we need to be able to increase our market share above 1.5–2%. There is work that needs to be done, and there is no one who in HFC, and I stand and I tell the staff at all times, nobody who performs, who meet the targets in HFC could ever claim that they will never have a job in HFC. We have clear performance targets that we have set. We have let every staff member, I communicate with my staff 4 times a year via video. We call staff Durbas to let staff understand what is going on. We meet with managers. We poll staff to understand their level. And I will also say, we poll our staff on think it's quarterly basis, to understand their level of commitment and to what extent they understand what is happening with regard to where we're going as a bank and how happy they are with HFC. Now, whether or not people decide, and I can't be responsible for that, whether people decide to answer the questions fairly or not, that is a position that is left up for them to decide. But based on the feedback that I have from my staff, or the majority of the staff,
they're all happy.
We are all relatively happy. People will not be 100% happy. I'm sure if I call Festus and say, Festus, are you happy that you didn't get a promotion, or you did not a promotion, that you did not get a salary increase? I don't think everybody will be happy about it. Do you understand why you didn't get one? I think he could give you an answer. Yes, he understands.
Okay, so let's now move on to the expansion time that you have. We know that when it comes to these two banks that went down, you had put in a bid. Is that true or false?
We had expressed an interest in it.
You had expressed an interest in getting one of them?
Getting one or getting both of them?
Getting both of them. Were you disappointed when the regulator decided to hand it over to Ghana Commission or GCB Bank?
No, I mean, we understand. I mean, at the end of the day, government makes decisions based on their interests, and there are a number of considerations, and I think the Bank of Ghana explained that there were a number of considerations that they took in making a decision. At the end of the day, you win some, you lose some, and I feel that the Bank of Ghana, I felt that the process was fairly transparent. I accept the position that came out of the Bank of Ghana because I have a lot of confidence, and I have a lot of confidence in the governor, and therefore I accept the decision.
So is that to say that whatever expression of interest you put there did not meet the so-called criteria, because of, if you listen to the brouhaha after this whole announcement since Monday, there seem to be more questions unanswered than the answers we have received.
Well, I think you as journalists will need to get the questions, the answers that you want. But I think the decision had to do, as the governor said, it was driven by a number of factors. One, the amount of staff that is going to be laid off. Two, the amount of branches that are going to be closed. Three, the price that was being paid for it. Four, the impact on capital adequacy of the other banks. There were a number of things that I think the Bank of Ghana, and when you have to make a decision, that will come into play. I think though, the fact that we are here today and a very significant signal that was sent, and which I praise the governor about, and the fact that we are here and depositors, there are a number of places that depositors, when these things happen, do not always get back all of their funds. You always hear about a haircut, and depositors lose money when banks or when licenses are revoked. And that's a fact. It's a fact that happens all over the world. Ghana is part of a financial world system. And therefore, the fact that the governor has been able to do this, and depositors could get back their funds, and there has not been any systemic risk, I think we have to be full in praises to the Bank of Ghana and to the government for handling the situation in this manner. And every single depositor who is now able to have access to their funds, that is a blessing. Those depositors took a decision to go at high interest rates and put their money in these institutions, although other institutions were not paying as high. Today, they did not have to pay a price. They didn't lose their money. They got their interest, they got back their money. I think people need to be grateful for that.
Is there any other plan, or is there something that is cooking for you to want to look at other institutions? I mean, any other bank that you want to merge? Because I know that on your plan, at some point, as part of the expansion drive, you may want to acquire or merge?
Well,
Are the institutions you're looking at?
Well, no, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I feel that, and I am one on record, that feels very strongly that the number of banks that we have in Ghana are way too many. We have to have consolidation, and I think that is impacting the amount of banks that we have, is impacting the spreads, the wide spreads that we have. It's impacting the lending rates on coming down, all right? And I think there needs to be consolidation. I think the number of banks will have to come down to way below. If you take an example that a big country like Canada has about 6 banks, when you look at countries like Nigeria with 14 banks, the reality is banking is an old profession, or one of the oldest professions in the world. There's a reason why it's in an old profession, because it has lived, it has sustained time, and there are ways in which you have to operate, otherwise it costs. So we have to bring the number of banks down to single digit. And
how many banks are you proposing?
I would suspect there should be anything no more, based on what I see in other countries. Ghana as an economy could support no more than about 9 banks maximum.
9 banks. And you do think that these central banks increasing the minimum capital requirement is the best way to be able to, separate the big voice from those who cannot, and therefore would bring about these mergers and acquisitions, or the consolidation that you talk about?
Again, these people have to do, the central bank needs to do the right thing. You need to have well-capitalized banks, because if you don't, somebody pays for the fact that when you have failed banks. And rest assured, somebody is paying for the fact that UTL Capital Bank has failed. And if you don't have it, there is nothing like a free lunch. Somebody pays. So this idea of putting proper capital is not because you want to hurt anybody. It's not because you want to do something against somebody. It is because it is the right thing to do. And if you want to get into banking, you have to be able to have capital to inject into the banks, so that the banks will then be able to withstand and protect depositors' funds. Because when they don't, you have insolvent banks, and you have situations like what you have. So people must not look at this as something somebody wants to do to bring mergers. First, to begin, based on what is capital in banks around the world, what is the required level of capital that you should have in a bank? Let's start with that position. And then you do the right thing. That will result in people making rational decisions. And if those rational decisions ends up in mergers and acquisitions, well, so be it. The government has signaled, and I saw the Minister of Finance, the government will also have to make a decision based on their institutions that they own, what they need to do, and they will make their decisions of how they want to rationalize. And private sector individuals will make their own decisions as to what it is. Whether these banks are going to be foreign owned, whether they're going to be locally owned, at the end of the day, the banks are going to be stationed here in Ghana. And when they give a loan, the loans are going to be given to Ghanaians. When they make profits, the profits stay in Ghana.
When it comes to profits staying in Ghana, some have argued that, listen, I mean, when it comes to the foreign banks, then you should start the word. You make profits, you repatriate.
But at the end of the day, when you increase the capital, you brought capital in. So when you increase the capital, and these foreign banks have to bring capital in, you bring money in. All right? And understand, a bank is also about the services that you provide. When you invest money in technology and having nice premises, who benefits from that? Is the Ghanaian public. Don't you? When you are able to go to the bank and get a loan, or be able to go to the bank and get quick service, who benefits? The Ghanaian public. When the businessman is able to go and get a loan, who benefits? The Ghanaian public and the Ghanaian economy. So profits is a consequence. You can't make a decision that talks about an end result, right? People make profits or not make profits based on the services that they are offered. And the people who give you the profits, it depends on the services. As a Ghanaian, or as a Ghanaian businessman, you will choose to go and put money in a bank or borrow money from a bank based on the interest rates of the bank. You are not looking to say, well, this is a Ghanaian bank or this is a non-Ghanaian bank. You want the best service. So let's not talk about the end result, right? Let's also talk about what is best, and let's make a decision. What is best for the economy? What is best for the movement of making Ghana the financial hub that we want it to be?
And what is best in one sentence?
Well, I think what is best in one sentence is that you have banks that are well capitalized, and yet you have banks that are going to ensure that depositors' monies are protected, and you have banks that are going to be of the size that are then able to help the Ghanaian economy to grow. And when that happens, because banks are facilitators, when you have a strong banking sector is a facilitator of economic growth. And by extension, if you have a weak banking sector, you will then have a hindrance to economic growth. So is it okay to say that I have a banking sector that is Ghanaian, but it is not playing its key role, that is a facilitator for economic growth? And what we all want in Ghana is economic growth, because when you have economic growth, you get housing, right? You get jobs, you get new businesses being opened, who will then employ more people, and you get growth in the GDP, all to the benefit of the Ghanaian economy. So we have to keep our eyes on the long-term objectives.
Very well, Robert. Let me now look at your moving away. We understand and we have information that this Friday, probably is your last day working in this particular institution that you've worked very hard the last 4 years to build. As you walk away, who in your mind is the safest pair of hands to continue what you have been able to do to this point?
But, you know, I will answer that by saying that I am part of a fantastic organization that is called Republic Bank, Republic Financial Holdings Limited. And that is an institution with a vision. As much as people have credited me for what I have done or not done, I mean, I'm a very senior member of that organization. And that organization vision was not Robert Le Hunte's vision. I was being given the opportunity to execute that vision. And I am one person, and I've always attempted to build a team around whatever I do. So to start with, the vision of Republic Bank or Republic Financial Holdings Limited for Ghana remains intact. And that's what is good about the fact that you have an organization with a vision, not a one-man story. And therefore, that will continue. We also have an organization, HSC. This organization is backed also by an organization that has a lot of debt. And there are a number of people, both in my country, in Trinidad, and also around the executive that I have managed over the last 2 years, who have helped as a team to achieve what we have achieved. This is not a single man shop. We talk about the executives and we talk around the table of team. Together, each achieve more.
But Robert, you would agree with me that whoever that comes in to take your place must understand the Ghanaian market. Mm-hmm. You lived in Ghana for years before you were in charge of risk, and then you became the managing director. You clearly understood how the Ghanaian businessman thinks, how the workings within the economic terrain was, and that has helped you to steer this ship, which almost sank at some point, to this level where our first year or first half year report of this year shows impressive performance and gives us the vision that look, end of 2017 will be so good, which I'm sure a lot of workers are working very hard to say 2017 when it ends, we must get bonuses, and we're going to work towards that because we have a man who understands us, we have a man who knows how we want to do this and is leading us. Obviously, you would agree with me that bringing someone from Trinidad to Ghana is going to take the person time to understand. So that is on the table. But you have very good executives, as you just said, here in this country. If the board meets on Friday, which I hear they will be meeting, and they put a question to you. Okay, Robert, we want you to have the first say. Who should take your place? Let's just say this is the board. Robert, who do you think among your team can lead this ship? What would you say?
And you know, you continue towards carrying me down a path, and you will take me down that path as much as possible. But I think clearly, the answer to your question is that yes, I think we have competent individuals here in Ghana among the combination of local Ghanaians who are here and among the team of Trinidadians who have also come on board to be able to do it, to be able, any member of my team. And all the considerations that you have mentioned about the need to understand this environment, I'm sure my people in Trinidad and I'm sure the learned board will have also taken into consideration. Because I think we also have to be taking into consideration is what is the next evolutionary step for HFC. Robert played a part in getting us here. Robert played a part in stabilizing the institution. And there's a leader that is required for different times. You know, there are leaders with different skills. And I have used my skills to get us to this position. But I think the next leader of HFC will have to be someone that is now able to take my plans or take some of the plans that we have now of growing, because we have had to put those plans on hold. If you had talked about what we would have wanted to do as an organization, we talked about growing in the energy sector. We talked about, so the next person will have to be someone who will now take that and reposition HFC, right, as a lender for companies, local content companies in that sector. So that person must be a strong person who could handle that level of corporate lendings and expansion.
It sounds like somebody, right? It sounds risky.
We are looking very much at someone who has a deep understanding to bring some of the practices that Republic Bank in Trinidad is one of the largest lenders in mortgages and retail lendings. Whereas in Ghana, banks don't get into retail lendings and salary loans as much, and that is left to a number of other smaller institutions. In Trinidad, Republic Bank is the leader in that type of work that companies like the airport do here.
Yeah, the airport, Finance,
and
AFB,
so forth. AFB. So we found ourselves, that is our strength in Trinidad. We are the leaders in that type of lending. So we need to get into that type of lending here and bring down the cost of that lending.
And when do you intend implementing that?
That's all of our plans for the next 6 months and going into next year. So you will see us as we transform, as we settle the organization. A lot of things like that in retail lending, we are going to go full speed ahead. And we need someone who understands that. and understand what we did and how do you do it here, right? That is going to be critical, because at the end of the day, when that is done, and lendings to people with salaries move, the price of those lendings are cut in half. Who benefits? The Ghanaians. So we are about improving the lives of people. So that is going to be critical. So we also have to, you know, there is a saying called there are horses for horses, and one horse that could run well on a grass track is different from a horse that could run well on a dirt track. So it is not that the horse that wins the race on the grass track is better. It is about who is the right person that will be able to take. And I will dare say that that is a decision that the board of directors are going to make, not necessarily by Friday, but as early as this afternoon. And as soon as that, the board of directors in their wisdom make that decision, I will make sure that I will be.
Robert, let me give you two names. I'm just going to take it hard with you. I mean, Paula, Jordan.
I think you have just named two very competent executives at the bank. And I think any one of them that is actually able to take up the position here, they will do a fantastic job in living a lot of the plans that I have put in place.
Wow. What would you want to say, very finally, just as what would you want to say to your staff? I mean, this is your goodbye message. I mean, I Friday will be your last day, but through this, when this video goes online, I'm sure for ages past, just as you said, you came, you saw, you strived very hard through all the turbulence times, and you made sure that you conquered. And today the ship is stabilized and has taken off, ready to, you know, make good returns for itself. Or if it was a plane, and to soar into the sky. What would you want to say to the staff who've worked with you for all these 4 years?
You know, I think the message to my staff is one of a hearty thank you. We have worked very hard in trying to create a new culture in the organization. Because we could not exist as an organization with the old culture that we had. And I know anytime when you try to implement change and implement something different, it is not something that is always easily received. And even my staff during the times, like a good leader, sometimes you have to execute medicine to your kids that is not tasty, but you know that is the right medicine for them. The fact that we are all here today and able to talk about the past and could look at a bright future, it was always the vision that I had. And for a lot of people, they were able to stay true to that vision and believed in what it is that I did, or what was the vision that I had for the organization. And they did that sometimes against in the midst of individuals that did not always believe. So at the end of the day, I say thank you to all the staff that stood the ground and stood and supported me throughout the endeavors, throughout our transformation endeavors. It would not have been possible without them and their support. And to my executive, again, you know, it has always been a team effort. They were the individuals who executed a lot of what we had achieved. Are we finished with all the work? No, by far not. There is still a lot of work to do. But what we have achieved so far is because of the collective work of a number of people who opened their hearts and allowed us to come in. And as a result of that, I want to say a hearty thank you and a sincere thank you from the bottom of my heart for them and for that assistance that they provided.
How about your board?
My board, again, you know, we came in Again, in turbulent times, on my board, led by Professor Alabi in the beginning, who I never met Professor Alabi before as a person, and who I've grown to admire, and his leadership style was very appropriate for that time. And Professor Alabi played a big role in helping us through that transition time when he stood by what was right. And you know, a number of leaders don't do that. A number of people do what is convenient. A lot of people do what is convenient and what is in the best interest of them. I think Professor Alabi understood what was right with regard to Republic Bank and what was happening, and also he understood what was right for Ghana with regard to opening up that whole diaspora investment. And he stood behind us. And therefore for that, I'm again eternally grateful for that initial board that stayed the course. Mrs. Lomo, who has also just left the board, again, was a tremendous stickler to ensure that the culture and there's a good match between Republic Bank and Ghana for us to reach where we are now. We have our new chairman. Mr. Zwenis was again a person who has been in the trenches with us, right, in 2000, since 2015, 2016, 2014, 2013, who has been there, who has again, now it is now with his leadership, I think again it's about the right time. It is now, he's a very young chairman. He understands the bridges that are required between Ghana and the Caribbean. In addition to that, he understands the two cultures and also the two generations that are required. So Mr. Zwenis is now the right person in the job, and I am sure with the assistance of the management and with Republic Bank, the organization is in good hands. So I leave with a saddened heart, and I mean, a lot of people have asked me, well, why are you getting involved with politics? You know, and I think if good people do not get involved, politics and politicians are part of our lives. I think people do not understand the tipping points of countries and how important it is that we have the right people as leaders, as right politicians. We look at politics, but at the end of the day, a minister, a politician, is the one that has a lot of power in making a lot of decisions. And like everything else, if we leave the politics as people, as educated people, as sensible people, if we leave it without us getting involved, then we leave a vacuum for the wrong people to get involved. And if that happens, I don't think you could stand and blame the politicians, because we left a void. And it is therefore imperative that as a professional, that I think if you want to criticize, and if you want to have the right to criticize and pass aspersions, then you have to, when asked, decide that you are going to take up the mantle and get involved. So I am moving from the private sector into the public sector. I've been invited by my Prime Minister to serve, and therefore I feel I have a contribution, and I'm going in there to serve, because I believe that at the end of the day, the highest ability or your greatest ability to serve your people is by being there in active politics and being able to help the people, to take your people through a different level. So I take up this new challenge in my life, you know, and I really hope that even my action could inspire other private sector people to get up. It is service to humanity. I was part of an organization growing up called Junior Chamber International, JCs, and it says service to humanity is the best work of life. And that is part of our creed that we say at every meeting, and it's something that has stuck with me for the whole of my life actually, and it's something that I always live by. So this is an opportunity for me to serve humanity, and you could try to serve humanity in what we did at HFC was another way of serving humanity, and we did that through the private sector. This is an opportunity to serve humanity in this way. Is this the end of my journey with Ghana? Of course not. I am married to a Ghanaian, and therefore I have a vested interest in this country.
You're going to come back to Ghana next time, not for me to say the managing director of HFC, but I have to say Mr. Minister.
I definitely hope that this...
If your country they say honorable, then I have to say honorable Robert Le Hunte.
And you might have to. I hope that I will be back in Ghana, and I hope that getting into politics there will also play a role in bridging that relationship, because we have a lot to do with regard to South-South trade. There's a lot to do with regard to South-South trade. A lot of things happen by way of the north, but if you look at where all of the people live is in the south of the equator, and therefore we have to work to build that trade, and we all have our roles to play. I would love to see trade between our two countries expand, right? And then I would love to see us create a hub so that we could use that for more investments in the south, more investments into Africa. And then I would love to see trade not only with Africa, trade with India, trade with China, and there's a lot of expertise. Too much times when we think about looking at consultants, we go north, we go to Europe, we go to North America. I would like to see the day when we are looking for consultants that we could stay south.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robert Le Hunte, for speaking to us. We wish you well in your journey back home, and I hope that we see more trade between Ghana and Trinidad and Tobago whilst you become a minister of state in there.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank you here publicly for your support over the past 4 years. You are one of the journalists that we know you have always had access to me, because I always saw you as a fair journalist and one that calls a spade a spade. And I want to congratulate you and hope that you continue along that line. And I think your newspaper is indeed blessed to have somebody as your caliber waiting for them. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.